If you're learning German because you want to actually use it in real life, there is one phrase you absolutely need to know, which is ich hätte gern. It means I'd like to have, and this one phrase can help you order coffee, buy bread, ask for something in a shop, get help at a pharmacy, buy a train ticket, and so much more. So in this video, I'll show you exactly how to use ich hätte gern in real life situations. And if you want more phrases like this, comment 100 below and I'll send you my free guide with 100 practical phrases for daily life, including digital flashcards and audio recordings so you can actually practice them. So what does ich hätte gern actually means? Ich hätte gern literally means something like I would gladly have. But in English, we just translate it as I would like to have, right? So ich means I, hätte means would have, and gern means gladly. There is no need to overthink the grammar here. Simply learn it as one full phrase. So ich hätte gern plus the thing that you would like to have. And next, we'll look at how this phrase works in different kinds of daily life situations, because this is where it becomes really powerful. So let's start with one of the most common situations, ordering in a cafe. So here you can say, for example, ich hätte gern einen Kaffee. Or ich hätte gern einen Tee. Ich hätte gern ein Wasser. Ich hätte gern ein Stück Kuchen. You may hear the waiter or waitress say, was darf es sein? Or the shorter version of that, was darf sein? Meaning, what can I get you? Or they might also ask, was hätten Sie gern? What would you like to have? If you hear that, your answer can start with ich hätte gern plus the thing that you would like to order. Now, next we'll take a look at a situation in the bakery. This is one of the most common daily life situations, especially if you live in a German-speaking country. So, for example, if you want a bread roll, you can say, ich hätte gern ein Brötchen. Now, I know the pronunciation of Brötchen can be a little tricky, especially because of the Ö sound, but here is an exercise that you can use in order to practice this. So what you actually want to start with is the E sound, E, and the reason for that is because your tongue position in E is exactly the same as in Ö. So the only thing left to do is forming your lips to an O shape. So we go from E to Ö. E, without moving your tongue, of course. That's the key part of this. So if you find this sound a little tricky, I highly recommend building this into your routine, maybe before or after brushing your teeth, because then you're most likely in your bathroom and have a mirror where you can check what your tongue, your mouth, and your lips are doing. Okay, so that by the end you can pronounce words like Brötchen. Ich hätte gern ein Brötchen. Next, ich hätte gern ein Vollkornbrot, which means a whole grain bread. Vollkornbrot. And if you don't know the exact name of something, you can also just point at it and say, ich hätte gern das hier. Because sometimes, especially in bakeries, they can get very creative with the names of the pastries they have. So even I just sometimes point at something that I want and say, ich hätte gern das hier. Now let's move on to restaurants. Here you can say, for example, ich hätte gern Schnitzel mit Pommes. Ich hätte gern die Rechnung bitte. Now, this phrase is not just for food, you can also use it for shopping. You can say, for example, ich hätte gern diese Jacke. Or ich hätte gern diese Schuhe. Ich hätte gern das in Größe M. Ja, die Größe means the size. Ich hätte gern das in Größe M. Another very common place where you can use this phrase is at the pharmacy. This is a situation where many learners feel nervous because they want to be understood clearly. So let's break this down step by step. For example, if you have a headache, you can say, ich hätte gern etwas gegen Kopfschmerzen. So, die Kopfschmerzen are your headache. Etwas means something, and gegen actually means against, but in English we wouldn't say it like this, we would translate it as for. Yeah, but in German we say against the headache or against the flu or whatever it is that you are experiencing. Let's take a look at another example. Ich hätte gern etwas gegen Husten. Or ich hätte gern ein Nasenspray. Ich hätte gern Pflaster. So in the pharmacy context, if you have a specific symptom, you can start with ich hätte gern etwas gegen and then add the problem, like Kopfschmerzen, Halsschmerzen, Husten, eine Grippe. And you can also use this phrase when traveling around Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. Like for example, when you're buying tickets, you can say, ich hätte gern eine Fahrkarte nach Hamburg. Or ich hätte gern eine Tageskarte. Ich hätte gern eine Monatskarte. Isn't it incredible how much you can already say with just this one phrase? And you don't need to build every sentence from scratch, just learn one practical chunk like this and you'll be able to handle numerous daily life situations. And that's also exactly why I created my free guide with 100 practical German phrases for daily life with digital flashcards and audio recordings. From greetings to ordering at a restaurant, describing an emergency, and so much more. If you want access to that, just comment 100 below and I'll send it over to you. Now let's talk about a very common question that I always get. What's the difference between ich hätte gern and ich möchte? So let's break this down. Ich hätte gern literally means I would like to have, right? Whereas ich möchte means I would like. So in the context of ordering or requesting something, you can use both. I personally prefer using ich hätte gern because it sounds slightly more polite and less demanding compared to ich möchte, but that's just a personal preference. The key difference is that ich möchte can also be used when talking about things you want to do, so activities that you want to do. For example, ich möchte Deutsch lernen. Or ich möchte nach Deutschland reisen. So an easy rule that you can remember is that you use ich hätte gern when you want to receive, order, or buy something, and you use ich möchte when you want to do something, right? So compare these two sentences here. Ich hätte gern einen Kaffee. I would like to have a coffee. So you want to receive or order something. Now with möchten, ich möchte einen Kaffee trinken. I would like to drink a coffee. So here the emphasis more on the thing that you want to do. In many situations, both are understandable, so don't panic if you would use one or the other. But if you want a very natural, polite phrase for cafés, bakeries, restaurants, shops, and so on, ich hätte gern is the phrase to remember. So this is exactly how you want to learn German as a beginner, not by memorizing random word lists, but by learning practical phrases you can immediately use in real situations. Because every time you successfully order a coffee, buy a ticket, ask for something in a shop, or handle a tiny everyday interaction in German, you build proof of I can do this. And that's how confidence in your speaking abilities grows through small real-life wins. So if you want more phrases just like this, phrases you can immediately use in cafes, shops, appointments, restaurants, and everyday conversations, just comment 100 below and I'll send you my free guide with 100 practical German phrases for daily life, including digital flashcards and audio recordings so you can practice them properly and actually remember them when you need them. And if you want to understand another very common mix-up beginners have in German, watch this video next where I explain the difference between mögen and gern, which both mean to like in German, but are used differently in a sentence. Das ist alles für heute. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss!